What's up, guys? So, recently I learned of certain states that actually have a requirement of you showing an ID when you go vote. And I think that it's a pretty interesting topic because it makes me wonder a few things. There are some questions that I have, and of course, like everything in life, I have an opinion on it. And I would like to see what you guys have to say about it because I find it that I tend to be disagreeing with some folks, and maybe I'm just missing the point, or maybe I'm just deep down a terrible person. But, anyways, you guys tell me. Let's have an open discussion about this. So, basically, when you go vote, at least in most states, I have no idea which states require this. Maybe it'll tell me in the article that I am reading, which I provided the link in the description. But when you go vote, at least in my experience, I have never had to show an ID. And that deep down bothered me a little bit because I always felt like if you have to register to do something, when you register to do something, you are, what can I say, providing your personal information. Why would you not ensure that the person who you are getting ready to give a ballot is who they claim they are? So, this article says voter identification laws are a part of an ongoing strategy to roll back decades of progress on voting rights. Why? 34 states have identification requirements at the polls. 7 states have strict photo ID laws under which voters must present one of a limited set of forms of government issued photo ID in order to cast a regular ballot. No exceptions. Voter ID laws deprive many voters of their right to vote, reduce participation, and stand in direct opposition to our country's trend of including more Americans in the democratic process. Again, I want to know why. So I am going to just sort of scroll and get to the meat of it. Voter ID laws deprive many Americans. Okay. Okay, the first point is millions of Americans lack ID. 11% of US citizens, or more than 21 million Americans, do not have government issued photo identification. Once again, why? Why is this the case? Immediately, I'm like, I would think that your personal documentation is something that is incredibly important. From the moment you are born, I would expect that your parents have this information together. You are not just born, like, at least on the streets. Most of us are born in a hospital or something. What happens there and then to where you're not getting your documentation? But that's, as I do commentary, this is just the cynical side of my brain just creating an opinion. The answers, I guess, will be the further down I read, but immediately, because this is new to me, I want to be like, okay, why? What's happening? Then the next point says obtaining ID costs money. Even if ID is offered for free, voters must incur numerous costs, such as paying for birth certificates to apply for a government issued ID. Once again, why do you not have a birth certificate? Did you lose it in a fire? Did you move and you misplaced it? Did your parents never pass it down to you? The first thing that my mother did when I turned 18 was she gave me all of my papers and documentations and everything. And when my brother moved out, the very first thing that she had ready for him, sorry, was a folder containing all of his personal information, ID, birth certificate, and even his health record. So, once again, why are you missing this stuff? And it's true, government ID costs money because when I got my license, first I got an ID card because I needed to travel. Another time was I had to get my learner permit. Another time was I moved. Another time was I moved. Another time was I moved. And each time I was getting charged. So, yes, in a sense, this can create a dent in your finances. But I guess this all comes down to how you make money and how you spend it and maybe how you invest it. Because when I was in school, I always wondered why some kids, some of my classmates, did not have paper, pencils, or like money for lunch, and just things like that. What happens in your home that makes it difficult for you to pay for this stuff? And if it's something that is going to hinder your ability of living, you know, to get a job, for example, you need to have your papers together. So I would expect that that becomes something urgent. So let's say that you need papers to get a job. At least what I would do is maybe borrow money from someone and just commit to paying back. Look, I don't have any money right now. I'm going to get hired, and once I get hired, I will set aside the money that you invested in me to help me progress. I don't know. It's just that in my personal life experience, when I have needed help, all I had to do was just ask around and people helped me and I made sure that I got back to them. So I'm wondering what's keeping certain people from getting through this. But anyways, let's keep reading. Again, I like to share before I know anything what my initial reaction is, and then as I learn I can be like, oh, that makes sense, that changes my mind. So let's keep reading because I'm starting to get too ahead of myself. um okay. So, underlying documents required to obtain ID cost money, a significant expense for lower income Americans. The combined cost of document fees, travel expenses, and waiting time are estimated to range from $75 to $175. So, again, yes, it is pricey. I mean, you're paying about $100 for documents, papers, and I guess transportation and whatnot. But again, I need to figure out what makes this impossible for some people. Now, individuals with disabilities, I know that's a completely different beast, but yeah, so far I just have so many questions. The travel required is often a major burden on people with disabilities, the elderly, or those in rural areas without access to a car or public transportation. In Texas, some people in rural areas must travel approximately 170 miles to reach the nearest ID office. So, when it comes to that, I'm beginning to wonder in more modern times, why are there people still living in desolated areas? Like, is it the responsibility of an individual to live somewhere where you have access to having your needs accounted for? But at the same time, if you're living in a place that you inherited because your parents passed it on to you, we cannot blame you for that. Like, good for you for being a homeowner and I guess having somewhere to live and you don't have to worry about paying that off. But if you're living somewhere where that's not doing you many favors, why are you still there? And is it the responsibility of government to look at these people and be like, you know what, we need to have a government office that's nearby for individuals like this? This is a big country, and I would expect that there is places available for everybody. Apparently, there isn't. But when it comes to voting, I think it's important. So why is it difficult to have an area to take care of this? Say, why can you not set up schools to be polls, which at least where I have the places I have lived at, they have always used some schools as polls. So why can you not run the, what is it, process of giving people their IDs while you're there? You know, like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I just think it's weird that people are missing this documentation in the first place. It sounds like something that you would have from early on. And I know that IDs expire, but that takes 10 years usually for IDs to like go bad on you. So I don't know. Let's keep reading. Voter ID laws reduced voter turnout. A 2014 GAO study found that strict photo ID laws reduce turnout by 2 or 3 percentage points, which can translate into tens of thousands of votes lost in a single state. Yeah. Voter ID laws are discriminatory. Minority voters disproportionately lack ID. Nationally, up to 25% of African American citizens of voting age lack government issued photo ID, compared to only 8% of whites. States exclude forms of ID in a discriminatory manner. Texas allows concealed weapons permits for voting, but does not accept student ID cards. Until its voter ID law was struck down, North Carolina prohibited public assistance IDs and state employee ID cards, which are disproportionately held by black voters. And until recently, Wisconsin permitted active duty military ID cards but prohibited Veterans Affairs ID cards for voting. I mean, on the note of being in the military, I would expect that you have your regular ID. Like, how do you get into being a in service without originally having an ID? What happens to your civilian ID? Why would you not renew that and hang on to that? See what I mean? To me, my state issued ID is officially what identifies me anywhere that I go. So, of course, I protect that little card with my life. So, I'm wondering what happened to other people to where their IDs just got lost, destroyed, and never replaced? Or just how can you be a grown person and not have an ID? It's just weird to me. That's the toughest part about me thinking about this is that the way I think as an adult is this is stuff that I just have like sorted out. And that if something were to happen to it, which my social security card once got lost, and that the first thing I did was get a replacement. Report it as missing and file my taxes. That's what I needed it for. And after that, it's like boom, I'm back on track. But it's just strange. But anyways, let's keep reading. Maybe it'll get into the political aspect of things. That's what I'm looking forward to. Voter ID laws are enforced in a discriminatory manner. A Caltech MIT study found that minority voters are more frequently questioned about ID more than are white voters. Questioned how? Like, is this valid? Is this you? Like, you can tell when an ID is real and when it isn't. They usually have like watermarks and little things that shine under the light. So, um, yeah, I wish that this would give examples of how you're questioned about your ID. What does it mean to have your ID questioned? What about it doesn't seem legit? It's never happened to me. Every time I've presented my ID, wherever I go, no one thinks about it twice. So, where is this happening? How is it happening? And why is it happening? That's what I want to know. I want to see the examples so that I can better grasp this. Voter ID laws reduce turnout among minority voters. Several studies. Oh, yeah, sorry, I just read that. Voter ID requirements are a solution in search for a problem. In person fraud is vanishingly rare. A recent study found that since 2000, there were only 31 credible allegations of voter impersonation, the only type of fraud that photo IDs could prevent, during a period of time in which over 1 billion ballots were cast. So, that is actually where I just go ahead and express that I personally am not against voter registration um, ID and your ID being required. Because every time I go to vote, I wonder why am I just verbally identifying myself answering questions, and that suffices. When I go to the bank, I have to show an ID. When I look for a job, I have to show my ID. When I go traveling, I have to show my ID. So, in an instance where I am participating in something and I am identifying myself, of course, why is that not required? Why am I not being asked for an ID to participate in something political? Um, and when it comes to say even buying alcohol, I have to show an ID, of course, because of my appearance. I appear to be under the age of 40. But just what is the problem? Show your ID. Like for me, I feel better having an ID or getting carded when I'm at the poll, because what's to keep someone, I don't know, someone who happens to stalk me in the age of digital stuff, I never put my information out there. I never tell people where I live. But if you visit me, you can figure that out without me telling you. So, all that you have to say when you go vote is your name, last name, and your address. Prove your address. And maybe your date of birth. People can find out your birthday. People can find out your first and last name. People can find out where you live. What's to keep some fool out there who doesn't have the proper documentation from passing as me? Especially because for some reason, people treat me like I look like I'm from another planet. What's to keep someone who kind of looks like they would fit the mold of looking from another planet and calling themselves my first and last name? And because they're not getting carded, they don't have to prove that they are the alien that they're saying that they are. And then they get to vote on my behalf. And then when the real me shows up, I have to discover that I am the victim of voting fraud because someone beat me to my own participation in democracy. See what I mean? An ID being asked would have prevented that from happening. But now I have to deal with the fact that someone impersonated me and casted a vote. And although this tries to say that this happens very, very seldom, it still happens. Like 31 people have been victims of this. That's 31 people who could have not gone through this had the ID been checked. Something as simple and stupid and easy as that. So, if you got nothing to fear, you're going to be okay showing your ID. Like when I think about voter suppression, like I know that there's gerrymandering, that's a crime. But I just think it's strange that people are saying that this is actually a bad thing. Like maybe this is saying that something that you should already have that is important for you as a citizen, which is your papers. This is making it an urgent matter if you want to participate in politics. See what I mean? It's not a matter of deliberately being like, let's make it tough on people who don't have an ID. I look at this as you should have your papers, go ahead and present them. You should have your ID, go ahead and use it and present it. See what I mean? But for me to look at it as, yeah, I'm being deprived of voting because I don't have documents and the government just knows that I don't have documents, I cannot just look at it as that. I mean, I just don't have a problem showing my ID. And the folks who don't have it, I guess let's make it easier for them to get it, especially if you're disabled and old. But I just think it's weird. And where are these people's families at? If you're disabled and you're old, where are your family at? I would hope that they do something for you, you know? I don't know. Like, I don't know. I have so many questions. I'm gonna catch up with the comments real quick just to see what you guys are saying, but I don't know. I don't know what to think. But for me, because I am prepared, I just don't fear showing my documentation. And if transportation is really a problem for people to make it to the poll or to make it to get their papers, are they going to go voting? Like Does it really make a difference? I mean, I guess you can look at it as another obstacle is being introduced at you participating in democracy. But if you struggle with your documents, or prior to struggling with your documents, you still struggle to make it to the polls. So, see what I mean? It's just weird. Let me see. These ID laws seem to target the absolute most vulnerable people in society, say an orphan who didn't have parents to apply for this stuff for them and can't afford to do it themselves. Well, that's an interesting point that you bring up. I did, prior to filming, I did think about people who were born, like, who were adopted or something, or who live in orphanages. But how are orphanages allowed to keep humans in there who don't have an ID? I mean, I think that is something that the government should address. Make it a requirement for orphanages to have this documentation together and let them have access to this process for free, because it's not the child's fault. They're vulnerable and defenseless, that they don't have parents to take care of them. And I know that orphanages have a very they're in a very what is it, unstable financial situation. Make exceptions. I wouldn't mind paying an extra few cents in taxes if it means that these people can have their lives sorted. But what steps are we taking to make this better? That's what I want to know. Voting is an inalienable right. Frankly, if there is one person with that right that can't get it for any reason, it's not accessible enough. Well, I guess in the age of online and digital stuff, how can we make this valid? Um, what is it, online? Just like you can do an absentee ballot or something, then why is there not enough technology to make it digitally accessible? You know what I mean? Like everything seems to be phone capable or computer capable. And even these folks who are poor and they don't have access to it, it's it's like, how do you get to the situation to where you're completely alone in this world? I know it happens. I know it happens to people. I'm not trying to say that it doesn't happen, but in this country, it's just crazy for me to wrap my head around that, because I know that there are resources out there. And I guess depending on your state, it may become difficult. I guess I'm just spoiled, but in a place like Texas, just what's happening? Like what's keeping these people away like that, in the dark like that? I'm not sure. People tend to cry voter fraud to justify this, but that's why voter registration is by household. Frankly, making sure no one votes twice is the job of the polling station. Driver licenses go bad every 4 years. Yeah, I know different states have different requirements. I feel like your passport is good for like 10 years, 9 years, or something. Some schools are set up as polls in the UK. I live in a semi rural area, but it still had like two polling stations within walking distance 2 years ago. I don't really know how it is in the countryside. If you don't buy the new Real ID driver's license, you can't get on a plane by 2020. I heard something about that. They're supposed to have like a little star symbol or something. I forget. But yeah, I guess I do have to renew my ID, which is annoying, but clearly it seems like in this country we do have a problem of legitimacy and authenticity, because why would people be freaking out about this? See what I mean? But anyways, again, I don't work on this. I'm not from the government. I'm just over here with a lot of questions, but but anyways, it's not always a matter of intelligence. You cannot possibly predict every circumstance as to why someone might not have their stuff in order. I have a passport that I carry with me all the time just in case I need it, but not everyone can. It looks cold in your room. It is kind of cold in here, to be honest. Voter fraud in person makes no sense. To steal someone's vote would cost you your own. There's also the chance of a postal vote. It's actually surprisingly hard to defraud a vote. Well, I think that at least in this country, the problem is people who are not citizens voting. Um, because it seems like like a lot of the time that's what comes up. It's like, there's people who are getting welfare and they're not even US citizens. In a sense, that bothers me because I'm a citizen of this country and I am contributing, and that someone who is not in the country legally is taking advantage of that. It's like, let's say that I decided I want to go to the United Kingdom, and for some reason I demand that I get free healthcare. What have I contributed to that society to entitle me to something from it? So, same thing in the United States. If you are entering the country without taking the proper steps and you demand attention and stuff, what have you contributed to our society to make you entitled to our resources? And very easily someone out there can say, "Oh, remember that the United States started off with a lot of bloodshed, and it started off with a lot of immigrants and people and all that." Let's leave the past behind for one moment and focus on the country that we have now. This is a land with laws and rules and regulations. While I don't love it, I understand that things needs to be obeyed or there are consequences. So, see what I mean? See what I'm trying to get at? So, it's not that I'm just mean and I hate people, it's just that, what can I say? Other countries would prefer their men and women before they take care of someone who's foreign. And they have a right to, because that's their land. That's what their families have owned for generations and whatnot. That's their culture, their pride, whatever the hell. Like, here, same thing. We all have our families, we all have our things, our resources, our homes, and whatnot. So it sucks to have something taken away from you. And although this is a rich ass country and a lot of things go to waste, don't even get me started on how we waste energy, food, water. We're spoiled little brats, all right? But when it comes to this political nature, I get it. I get it that there are laws and rules and they exist to maintain order. It may not be the nicest system, like it's not, what can I say, it has its flaws, but it's there and it's trying to keep order. But when we have people who ain't doing it right, that throws off the balance. See what I mean? But anyways, I'm just rambling there. uh where am I at? I wondered about digital voting myself. It would definitely increase participation, but you gotta think it would be easier to tamper with. I think that's why they don't do it, but who can say? The thing about digital voting and identifying yourself online is that your ID has a number, and I would expect that that number is exclusive to you, just like your social security number is exclusive to you. Like your social security card says this number has been established for so and so. So your ID, I would expect that it has a number that has been established for you. Whether you get a ID in Alaska or Hawaii or California, I hope that that ID number, wherever you got your first ID at, I hope that they kept it unique to you. So that way you can be tracked better and protect your ID from having that information stolen. You wouldn't go around like waving your debit or credit card, right? Because you're asking to have your information and money stolen. So treat your ID as such, your social security card. It has a little message in it, if I remember right, that says do not store this card in your wallet. And you can only get like 6 replacements in a lifetime, I think, of your social security card. So I'm just saying, I'm just saying, like I need to find out what people's lives are like to where it makes it a problem. Because it's easy to get caught up in how your life is going and how fortunately you may not struggle with this, but I don't know. It's weird. What happened to get you in does it the position of not having your stuff. You need an ID to buy a car, buy a gun, open a bank account, drive a car, and many other things. Requiring an ID to vote is not demanding too much. Exactly. I agree with that wholeheartedly. So, I guess for the folks who are low income, if you are deprived of those goods that were aforementioned, then why are you making a big deal about voting? See what I mean? I get it. Voting may put a person in the position of power where they can help your interests, but I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. That's why I'm reading this. I'm trying to find out. There's also the risk of, well, hypothetical situation, racist ass poll worker sees someone he doesn't like and decides to say their ID isn't valid. I can see that. But in a situation like that, that person is asking for trouble because the person who is being questioned can very easily file a complaint. And in this country, at least, I feel like laws of anti discrimination are very severe and real. All you have to do is complain that someone is treating you wrong because of the color of your skin, and immediately, no questions asked. It's like the false accusations of women against men sometimes. It's guaranteed that you will be heard and that person is going to suffer the consequences. So, yeah, I don't think many people go out of their way to act like that, you know? I feel like if someone gets defensive about that type of thing, they're hiding something and they're sketchy people in the first place. Anytime someone asks something from me, like a person in a position that gives them that authority, I fucking comply. I don't have a problem. I've never been pulled over by a cop, but I'm always prepared for that. Before I leave the house, do I have my ID? Do I have the copy of my ID? Do I have my insurance? Do I have the copy of my insurance? Do I have my registration? Do I have the copy of my registration? So, see what I mean? I like to think that I am taking the steps that it takes to avoid having problems like this. And last year, when I filed my taxes, I got a compliment from the person who was helping me saying, "Wow, you are a very organized person." I had everything. I had the tax documents from the past 4 years, I had my ID, my social security card, and the stuff that I donated, all of that organized, sorted by date, and filled out. It was a breeze. So there's people who, for some reason, they struggle when they go to do this stuff because they don't have their stuff ready. Why? I mean, why? So I guess this is one of those instances where, once again, I am going to sound like I am looking for a way to blame the victim. But again, the best way to address a problem is to understand why it's happening and explore the origin. So that's why I like to ask those questions. I don't want to make it seem like I'm not trying to be sympathetic with people, but let's think about stuff critically, all right? Because this thinking critically may help that person become better at keeping up with their stuff. It would help me, that's for sure. Let's see. It's an extreme scenario, but it's as possible as voter fraud. My state requires ID to vote. It's no big deal. I don't actually think that's going to happen a lot, but for a lot of people, it's the principle of the thing for whom the bell tolls and all that. There are at least a dozen organizations that can help people obtain legal state ID. Exactly. Every single state that I have visited, I see these offices, these places. Some are even non-profit. They have churches that like to help people, like voluntary places. Even you can file your taxes for free in certain places. You have to look for it. You have to ask around. If you don't know how to use a computer, can you get to a library? Someone can help you. Usually, when you need help with something, they say the library can help you. The library can do it. The library. So, again, where are you in the US to where this is a problem? And even that place in Texas that's supposed to be like deserted and rural and whatever, is there really, 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 really nothing there? And if there's nothing there, are you not afraid of the fact that there's nothing there and you're not trying to get out of there? Or are you trying to get out of there but you just cannot? What is the real reason? You know, what's the real problem? Because it's easy for me in my position where all of that is sorted for me. And if something happens, I have the resources to get it fixed and whatnot. But what's happening? What's happening? You know. Anyways, I'm gonna go back to the article and then I'll come back to you guys. Identified instances of fraud are honest mistakes. So-called cases of in-person impersonation voter fraud are almost always the product of an elections worker or a voter making an honest mistake, and that even these mistakes are extremely infrequent. How do you mess up someone's address and someone's name really bad? I know that there are a lot of people out there named Katie, and the last name Smith is popular. Katie Smith. I know there are thousands of Katie Smiths walking in this nation right now. And maybe there's a lot of, what can I say, I don't know, what's a popular last name? John Mills. There might be a lot of John Mills and Millers out there, whatever. So, but your address in your state, in your zip code, your building number is exclusive to you. So, I don't know. You have to be trying to get it wrong, okay? So, I can understand if, say, I can be, let's say, I can be an Ashley Johnson living in, I don't know, Massachusetts, and I live in 123 uh, Main Street. And then there's another Ashley Johnson in another state living in 123, what did I say? Main Street. But what you do is you pay attention to the state in which this person lives, the city and the state, because that stuff does not get duplicated. So if you are making the mistake of breezing through your job of looking up someone, that's your damn fault, because you need to make sure that the info matches. Some people don't read beyond the first line of things. Just like when you go shopping and there's customers who try to tell you that an item is either on sale and the item that they're talking about is like next to the sale tag and the sale tag does not align with it, or you're reading the tag that's above the product and the product above is cheaper but the tags are actually on the bottom. If you are bad at reading, that is your problem. This is not a problem of identifying someone. And voter fraud is a what is it, something that spreads very easily, an epidemic. That is, you are in a hurry to go home and you're not paying attention. Because I work in an office, I work with numbers and everything. One decimal point that's misplaced can mess up my entire workday. But guess what? I slow down, I take my time, and I revise everything 3 times as I go. So if you're not doing that, then you had issues. I mean, you see what I mean? So once again, I guess I make it sound like it's the victim's fault, or say the worker's fault, but just don't rush through things. Pay attention to detail. Detail is important. That's why the way that the country is set up, this system with addresses and numbers and IDs and exclusive numbers and social security numbers that correspond only to one person, someone thought about this shit. They spent a lot of money A lot of research went into this, a lot of trial and error, a lot of engineering went into this. It's not the system's problem. It isn't. You know, same thing with traffic laws. Someone, the engineer, did his math to determine that going 50 on a very, very like closed curve is dangerous. That's why you slow the fuck down. See what I mean? But anyways, that's just me. That's just me. Voter ID laws are a waste of taxpayer dollars. States incur sizable costs when implementing voter ID laws, including the cost of educating the public, training poll workers, and providing IDs to voters. Texas spent nearly $2 million on voter education and outreach efforts following passage of its voter ID law. Indiana spent over $10 million to produce free ID cards between 2007 and 2010. Well, guess what? When you develop something, it costs money. Spend the money training people. Because these people, first of all, you're creating jobs, and second of all, you're also ensuring that the quality outcome is present. A lot of times we complain that something that we do isn't high quality. Spend money training people. I would rather be with someone who is trained than with someone who isn't trained. Like, do you think you get better service at a supermarket where there is a new crew or where there are experienced, trained folks? Where do you think you'll get better quality service? So, so I'm just saying, why are you afraid of spending money on human human capital, like the human aspect of it? See what I mean? Like they make it sound, oh look, $2 million, that's big spending, big money. No, these people are probably going to be in their positions for a long time, so that is money well spent, and it's between 2007 and 2010. That's a 3 year span. Is that really bad? If it were yearly, then okay, it would make my eyebrows raise a little bit. But when you think about it, that is not that much. You're trying to make this sound worse than it really is. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of it. Um, yeah, that's pretty much the end of the article. So I'm gonna catch up with you guys and keep uh rambling and venting and whatever. Uh, Here's the rub. It might not actually be specifically about voter ID, but about the concept of having freedom denied. How is an ID denying you of voting? Just again, I know that I read that article in which it talked about disabled people, veterans, people who live in rural areas, elder folks, but I don't know. No, I'm not convinced. I say this as someone who works for the Salvation Army. I deal with it every day. Greetings, Mohammed. States don't become tyrannical overnight. It happens gradually. Freedom is never outright taken. It's eroded over time in imperceptible increments. Today you need ID. Tomorrow it could be anything. Well, on that note, I guess when that other anything happens, then we'll worry about it and then okay. But an ID to me is something that is inherent to you being a person living in this nation, being a resident, being whatever your status is in this country, your ID is probably the most important document along with your social security number. How can you be living peacefully knowing that you don't have that together? Would you be okay living with your bank account on $0? Probably fucking not. So how can you be okay not having your ID? See what I mean? Like I would be stressed the fuck out if I don't have that stuff with me. So, again, now what I want to research is what is the real reason why these people cannot make it? Are they absolutely alone in the world? Do they not have any friends? Do they not have any family? Do they not have any support group? Are they completely paralyzed? There's paralyzed people out there, quadriplegics. How do they go about it? Stuff like that. What specifically is happening? I need to know what that evil thing that's keeping these people away is, so that I can address it and tackle it and support whatever cause it is and contribute and help out like the good sister and citizen and neighbor that I like to call myself. you know so, but I cannot just go blindly into this with vague information. Let me know exactly what the issue is, and I'll be glad to. You need a ride somewhere, I will drive those 200 miles for you and take you where it is that you need to be. But first of all, I need to meet you, and second of all, I need to see what the problem is, because maybe the solution is right there next door to you and you just don't know it. There's a lot of stuff that I did not find out about because of my damn shyness. I used to not talk to people. I was afraid of people. So I had to learn from folks who I was close with. And I'm like, oh, holy shit, if it weren't for you, I would be lost. So are these people in the same position that I used to be? I am shy, I'm alone, I'm not from this state. So I don't know what my resources are. But the United States tends to be pretty systematic. Like, I guess in every state, the Division of Motor Vehicles, DMV, is called the Division of Motor Vehicles everywhere you go. It may have a slight variation, but you know that that's where you go to get stuff like ID and whatnot. And when it comes to getting a passport, I read somewhere that you can actually have a picture taken for it at pharmacies. So you cannot say that you do not have access to a passport just because you don't know how to take a good picture. So, to sum up my mentality, if you are struggling in the United States, it's not because there is a lack of resources in the land. I think you are misinformed. And if you are misinformed along with not having wisdom in certain areas, like say finances, then I think you just need to be advised. You need someone to coach you, because again, I'm not saying that I'm living, the greatest life ever. I am definitely not living to my max potential, because I just voluntarily choose that kind of life for me. But I mean, the bare minimum in this country is not impossible to have. Now, if you lose your parents, say, if you lose protection at an early age, that I can see how it will hinder you in a lot of areas in your life. Like, say, having your papers, getting an education, having a stable home. It is important to have stability in your home. People like that, I know that, the struggle is real. But are they getting their help? Do they know how to get their help? Do they know that there is help for them? I guess that's what we need to focus on. Like, making this information accessible for people. So, in this country, I think that there is a lot of people, and there's also a lot of businesses and a lot of places that are charity places. So, there's people out there who are willing to give you money, just hand it to you, to see you be better, to see you living well, to just help you out if you're hungry. There's people who are going to supply you with meals and, clothes, whatever it is that you need. You need to speak up, get out there and look for it. It is not going to come to your door knocking. See what I mean? So what is happening to these individuals to where that is not a possibility for them? That's what I want to know. Let's see. Hello from Egypt. Hello. That's ways away. I see. Do they require ID to vote in Egypt? What I am saying is voter ID might not be a big deal, but once they've taken that step, what's the next one? Every inch you give is more power for them and less for you, and it will never be enough. Well, now I wonder, what is it that they could possibly ask for beyond ID. I don't think that they would ever charge you for voting. Is that something legitimately illegal or unconstitutional? I know that at some point we had the literacy test problem in which, the real way to keep people from voting used to be the literacy test, but now it's pretty much guaranteed that you have access to education in this country. So, see what I mean? I don't know. I need to know what it is that they would roll out for me to be freaked out. See what I mean? Give them an inch, and eventually they will take everything. Um, Only true. The problem with worrying about it when it gets bad is that the process is slow enough that you won't notice how bad it gets until it's too late to go back. Well, I guess in a situation like that, you have to be really disconnected with the world to not see stuff changing. I mean, like me sometimes, I look at something and I'm like, has stuff gotten smaller or have I grown up? And thus my perception of the object is now different. Little things like that. A responsible person stays on top of their stuff. But if you are distracted or wasting time or outright not interested enough to keep up with the trends, that is your individual fault. So again, the process being slow and things, the symptoms are always there. There is no such thing as a perfect crime. Everything at some point gets solved and the hints show up. You just have to piece it together. Life is just one big puzzle. So once the symptoms show, face it. It's like ailments. You don't wait until it gets super bad to start addressing it, right? Like, as soon as you feel something, you start complaining about it, you have it checked out, and you get fixed up. But again, if you know what is important as an adult, I would expect that you can keep track of that naturally and voluntarily. Do you keep track of your bank account, your bank activity, your bank statement? I'm pretty sure you do. So, in the same manner that you can keep, like that focus look, that eagle eye on your numbers, on your bank account, I would expect that you stay an informed citizen. So, if voting is something that super concerns you, which, I mean, even though it really doesn't work in the way that we anticipate it for, if that's something that really worries you, you will keep an eye out. If you're an individual who needs healthcare and you're craving it badly, you will keep an eye out to look at what's changing, what's the trend, what places you can go, where it's cheaper, what kind of coverage is good for you, what kind of coverage is unnecessary. There is, like, do you ever shop for, say, a cable network, cable services, and you're like, ugh, I only want to have internet and cable, but it's trying to sell me a landline phone as well. You absolutely negotiate the fuck out of that with the company, right? So why would you not stay in touch with these types of things and be like, let me question why this is happening. Let me question this change. Like that transaction in your bank statement that you don't identify. Ooh, you immediately start calling the bank up about it, right? So in the political landscape, if something is changing, do you get excited and start questioning it and calling people up to find out what the hell is happening? Do you do that? Are you being actively responsible? If you are, and stuff is changing, then all right, you have a right to get upset. You're doing your part, being an informed citizen. But, but you know, I swear, just be an informed citizen. I think the biggest problem in this country is ignorance and apathy. A lot of people just don't care until it starts affecting them directly. You are choosing to lead irresponsible lives when you're young, and then when you get old and you're still poor as shit and you cannot seem to progress and your health is deteriorating, then when the problem is upon you, that's when you start trying to look for solutions. Avoid the problem and you will not have to stress over fixing it. So, what I am trying to say by that is be responsible, don't be ignorant, and don't be apathetic. So, I'm just saying, I'm just saying, so I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be inconsiderate. Not everyone is raised like me to think in this manner. I get that some people have unfortunate circumstances, but in this day and age where information is not being kept from you, you have access to so many resources, especially lots of free ones, and there's willing and capable people out there who go out of their way, especially during the holiday season. The holiday season is when people's hearts just, whoo, they just spread open. Like, people just give shit. One time, someone, a complete stranger, they gave me cash just because they thought that I was consistently nice to them and sweet and had a positive attitude. And I'm like, I did not ask for that, but it's a blessing. It arrived to me in a time of need. I looked at it as divine intervention because I believe in that stuff, spirituality. But I'm just saying, from personal experience, if you put yourself out there, someone will help you. Someone out there is willing. Someone out there wants to help, even if they don't know you. So you don't have to be like loved or romantically involved with someone or have a huge family for good stuff to happen to you. You need to go out there. But if you're waiting in your home in the rural area, expecting for them to just arrive knocking on your door, it doesn't happen like that. All right. So I want to encourage everyone to just, whatever problem it is that you have in your life, ask yourself, what am I doing to make it better? And just remember that taking action has its own fallacies too. Because, say, if you are in a situation where not taking action is better than taking action, then don't be the kind of person who thinks at least I'm doing something. If you're at least doing something and making your situation worse, just don't do anything. So be a critical thinker about it, because it is possible to, in an attempt to be actively working on something, you make the matter worse. Be wise about it. All right. But anyways, I'm gonna catch up with you guys, and after that I gotta bail. La 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 la. It doesn't matter what any given step is, any step in that direction is bad. Having said that, if the state issued IDs to everyone as a standard, then maybe voter ID is a reasonable ask. For free, I mean, life, it was impossible. Wait, for free, I mean, like, if it was possible to not have one. And even that's just maybe. Zambri, want to live with your maximum potential, marry me. Feeling frisky only with her. She's your dream girl holder. She is indeed. I wish I knew how good her sandwich making skills are. You guys are silly. You guys are crazy, but it's definitely making me laugh. um, but anyways, you guys. I mean, I guess we all have our challenges. We all have our flaws. We all have our situations. Just be true to yourselves and assess yourself. Someone out there has answers for you. Put yourself out there. Do not let four walls consume you. All right? And what I mean by that is, if you're someone who is isolated, stop being isolated if you're not progressing. Meet people. People are great. There's great people out there. There's lots of terrible people, but there's lots of great people. Put yourself out there and good things shall come your way. You just have to be wise about it. It's like nothing in life just builds up and grows on its own. It needs nourishment, it needs attention, it needs dedication. Do those things for you. See what you mean? See what I mean? Anyways, all right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in and joining me, and having this discussion with me. I learned some stuff, and it was a good topic. I think it's interesting. Um, did I change my mind on some things? Of course, I'm young and just stuck up and full of myself. So it's possible that I just am close-minded. But I promise you guys that I'll look at stuff a little further, be open to the possibility that I'm not seeing the big picture, the whole picture. And then if I find something noteworthy, then I'll be sure to bring it up and share it with you guys. But until then, I will read the last few comments and then I'm leaving. Hello, beautiful. I will change in 2019. All right, guys, I'll see you soon.